America is not going to back down to Islam, and it looks like this conversation and many others bringing awareness to this issue is working because people are standing up and rising against this craziness. And it looks like there's states in this country that are up for grabs. And we're going to talk about that and what it means to go to the polls. Christians, wake up. Only 1 in 4 of you that are registered to vote are actually going to the polls. We're going to change that starting today. All that and more when we come right back.
We pray for love and unity, and that the church would find new zeal and commitment to the mission and purpose of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
You're a liar! You're a liar!
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart.
Well, it's that time again, ladies and gentlemen, for the Political Pulpit. I am your host, Josh Navarrete, and it's so good to be back on the program with you all. Today, we are in the bigger studio in front of the big screen, so it's just a little bit of a change up, switch up to talk about the big issues in our country and across this world. We've been spending a lot of time in Iran, and before we get to all of that, I want to talk about what's happening in the home front. It already looks like the president's declaring that there are no negotiations. There's nothing to even talk about anymore because they're incompetent. They can't handle negotiations. So what do? You make the Strait of Hormuz controlled by the United States, and that's where we're at. And it looks like, according to the president, we're in full operation over there. They removed the mines, and they've removed any obstructions or defense mechanisms from Iran. So it's apparently the property of the United States. Before we continue, hit that like and share button and the notification bell. That way you are notified every time we go live. If you're watching from YouTube, if you're watching us from X, why don't you repost? Let your friends know. You can even comment and post something that you like or dislike. If you're watching from Facebook, it's an easy share. You can share it to one of your Facebook friends so that your friends and family know where you get your information from. And it helps us break through the algorithms. You can also visit us at politicalpulpit.com and to get all of your news. And then, of course, thank you to all of our partners. All right, let's get to it. Our first clip of the day comes from Eric Doherty. Now, Fox News has shifted Michigan U.S. Senate to toss-up along with Texas. This is before we play it. I want you guys to realize something on how important it is for us to vote as Christians, as God-fearing believers. This is extremely important, you guys. Take a look. Republicans are at 47, and Democrats are, I just can't see it on my screen, 47. Toss-up is at 6. So that means Alaska, Iowa, Maine, Michigan, Ohio, and Texas are all toss-up states to either win or lose the majority when it comes to the Republican side. A very fragile forecast for Democrats that can easily fall apart with a slight polling miss. Take a look.
Them right now, and it's
looks like we lost audio. We'll get back to you on that while they reset the audio. I think you girls know what to do up there in the production room. So basically, what that video is telling you is that that's how thin the margins are. I think that Americans, I always say this, the Democrats and the liberals on the left always overplay their hands. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to overplay it, and they're going to mess this all up for them because they go so extreme to the left. Before it was let's make sure that we let men go into women's bathrooms and women go into men's bathrooms, and boys and girls can change in their school locker rooms and whatever bathrooms they choose, and champion the crazy liberal LGBTQ alphabet syndrome or whatever it all is. They just go hard on those issues and not pay attention to the issues that matter to Americans, like putting food on their tables, being able to gas up their cars and get to work and provide for their families. Or they go hard on the other social issues like abortion up to the 9-month term of pregnancies. They want to champion some of the wrong things, and this is what we're seeing right now. Now it's for the, let's let everybody in the country. Let's abolish ICE and abolish police officers and defund the police. And then now there's this massive protection over the Islamic movement, the Islamification of America. That is not going to win, and America will not bow to Islam. That is 100, 1,000, 1 million, and I know that doesn't make sense, but I am just emphasizing America will not bow. But Americans need to do their part. They need to do their part because what's happening in America is a movement, is a disruption, and if you're not paying attention, you don't need to go very far to see that it's moving into your own neighborhoods. And once they get this audio fixed up, you guys can let me know in my ear how close we are.
See them right now.
Oh, there it is. You're going to realize that this is happening in the local elections, and that is their move. This has been happening since 1989 is the furthest video we could find where there's an Islamic movement saying our goal is not to become westernized. Their goal is to convert and to conquer the West into Islam. All right, let's go back to the original video. Roll it.
Them right now, and it's the new Senate map that we have found today. And focus on the yellow here. The toss-up races have changed, okay? I'll show you over there in a moment here, but 2 on this map now have been adjusted. Jason will swing on over here and show you the 6 toss-ups in the middle. We think Democrats are safe in 47, Republicans are safe in 47 as well, but the 6 in the middle are up for debate and up for a vote come November. Now, this could change and that could change, but right now, this is what has changed thus far today. I'll advance it one time, and here's why. Texas went from lean Republican to a toss-up. Karl Rove's coming up in a moment. He'll explain that. Michigan, based on the outcome of the vote last week at Al Sayed, went from a lean Democrat to a toss-up as well. So now you have here in the middle, you've got Alaska, Iowa, Maine, Michigan, Ohio, and Texas. We believe a half dozen states will determine the majority for the U.S. Senate. Why is this happening? We went deep into the demographics, and this is what we find. Hispanics moved toward Donald Trump in 2024.
Well, I wish we could have heard the rest of that, because this is the other part. Our local elections, the American issue in the elections is this. What he was about to say is that the Hispanic vote leaned towards President Donald Trump, but because of the messaging of the left and the optics of ICE and immigration, I believe is going to be problematic for these coming elections. So this is kind of where I wish the messaging would change a little bit. The truth is that there needs to be a messaging around not so much the South or even the North, but more of the East of the globe, meaning these Eastern countries that are sent people through Mexico into the United States that have this ideology. I don't think, for one, that we're going to lose our American spirit, but we're going to have to fight. We always are faced with these challenges to fight. All right, next clip. Alaska is on the verge of flipping blue. This has always been, for a very long time, a red state. The odds just took a wild turn on Polymarket. Now, you got to take this with a grain of salt. Democrats have officially taken the lead with a 51% chance to flip the Alaska Senate seat, leaving Republicans trailing at 49%. With former Democratic Representative Mary Peltola mounting a massive statewide challenge against incumbent Republican Dan Sullivan. The last frontier is officially shaping up to be one of the fiercest battleground races in the country. Check out the Polymarket US app. This is why you need to get to the polls. Next. The Democratic Party has abandoned the American mainstream for radical socialism. This is what we talked about yesterday. Go ahead and roll this.
Yeah, it is a stunning development. I mean,
all right, well, we're going to have to try this again. It looks like our internet is suffering in this big building we're in. We'll get it worked on. But this is the other part of what's happening to the Democratic Party, is they are leaning towards democratic socialism. Already, Mom Donnie in New York is facing issues with his whole tax, the second property that you own. New Yorkers are not happy about many things, and now he's rolling out a new tax bill that will tax those that own a second property, and he's receiving tremendous backlash over that. And it's to be expected. This is the whole process. Name me one socialist country that is showing success that you would rather live. And if you rather live there, then go there. It's that simple. But in America, that's just not going to work. Obviously, it's not the way that our forefathers had planned it to be. All right, I'll continue on this.
Yeah, it is a stunning
There it is. Go for it.
development. I mean, I remember saying years ago, we started a CPAC campaign, America versus Socialism, and people said, what are you talking about? I mean, America doesn't have socialists. And I said, no, America, the Democratic Party is embracing socialism. And now you actually see Democrats saying that they're socialists. And then you say other Democrats saying they're not socialists, but they're going along with most of these radicalized policies. And I think this scares people, Greta, overseas, even people overseas who aren't, conservative, but they really hate communism for what it did in their countries. I spent a lot of time in the former Eastern Bloc, and those countries are baffled as why America would think that Marxism or socialism would answer any of their problems. I like the old Democratic Party that wanted to spend more than we wanted to spend and wanted a little less constitution, a little less guns, but they were still playing within the confines of our constitutional republic. And the current Democratic Party seems to want to chuck that and be more of a European socialist democracy. And so this is a real test for the voters. The Republican Party isn't perfect, but it's going to benefit, I believe, from the fact that the Democratic Party is embracing an ideology that is well outside the mainstream.
That's exactly my point. Thank you, Matt Schlapp, for saying that. I think the Republicans are going to benefit for this, but you still have to show up to vote. That's what you're going to hear me say this throughout the show today. You got to go vote because they're overplaying their hand. They're leaning into this democratic socialism movement that's only going to implode before it even gets off and running. But we have to do our part. All right, next. Katie Hobbs went to a private school. Go figure. Now she fights against school choice for others. This hypocrite must be rejected in November. Polls show from Kalshi Politics, Arizona governor odds, Katie Hobbs, 86%, Andy Biggs, 14%. That has to change with the quickness because Arizona cannot afford another Katie Hobbs. She's governor, but she's more of a mouthpiece from a whole group of other people that aren't from Arizona, and she's more of a placeholder because she obviously is incompetent, can't do her job correctly, vetoed hundreds of good bills, and now claims that she's saving Arizona millions. And Andy Biggs is saying that we will abolish state tax. That's all you need to know, and not have any new tax on Arizonans. Well, the last few governors have raised state taxes, have raised taxes on gas, and we're looking more and more like California. And now finally we have a governor that's saying no new tax and abolish the state tax. No brainer. Get to the polls. Next. Senator Eric Schmidt warns the far left wave is spreading beyond New York to states like Michigan and Texas, arguing radical policies are now a feature of the Democratic Party. Well, I think the American left, Sean, at this point, is sort of post-Western civilization. All right, let's let him do the work and say it. Roll it.
Well, I think the American left, Sean, at this point is sort of post-Western civilization, post-American. And so you're seeing that play out across the country. It's not confined to the big cities with this hammer and sickle wave we saw in New York with Mandami and even those city council members. It's in Michigan, in the Midwest, right? He is now the Democrat nominee. He doesn't believe in borders. He doesn't believe in enforcing our immigration laws. Doesn't believe in policing. Okay, this is now a candidate for one of the two major parties of this country, and so the left has been consumed by this. In fact, just this past week, the DNC adopted in their platform a resolution to abolish ICE. Okay, this isn't a bug. This is now a feature of who they are. Tallarico's running a campaign, I guess, in Texas. It's a vegan campaign in Texas. That's very bizarre to me, but this is kind of where they're at, and I don't think we should dismiss it. I for one, Sean, does it make it easier in some ways to draw a contrast in election? Yeah, but I think as an American, this is really, really troubling.
Well, the problem with Tallarico is he's trying to put avocado on a Texas toast. I believe in the Texas voters, and they're going to wake up. The problem with Texas, though, is there's a massive immigration, migrant community of the Islamification of America. And this is where I keep saying America will not bow to Islam. Texas needs to be that example. Get to the polls. You need to rise up like Texans and take back your state. Because then you got these, not rhinos, but these Trojan horse people like Tallarico, who literally wants to abolish ICE, wants to defund the police, raise taxes, and use wild policies that's going to raise taxes and make it difficult for Texans to live that Texan life, that Texan lifestyle. This guy is basically showing that these candidates want to change America. They don't want any government oversight. They don't want policing. Well, that's because Sharia law is basically their law. That's not going to happen here. We're not going to stand for it. America will not bow. All right, next. Hispanic men gave Trump a solid double-digit win in 2024, and now the edge is gone. According to CNN's Harry Enton and his average of recent polls, that same group now has Trump underwater by more than 40 points. Well, they're upset, and it's because of the messaging. And I'm going to be honest, I was worried about that, and now here we are. Now we have Hispanics that are not, either they're not going to vote or they're just not going to vote Republican, and that's a scary thought. That's a massive flip in under 2 years, driven mostly by the economy, the very issue that pulled a lot of them over last time. Well, if we could turn that around in the next few months, we might have some people wake up. All right, roll it.
One of the key questions is, this November, what will happen to some of those voting blocs that swung a little bit toward Donald Trump, toward President Trump in 2024? Will those groups who were away from him but swung toward him stay with him? With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton. One of those key groups is
Hispanic men. Hispanic men. Donald Trump put up a historically strong performance for a Republican candidate for president amongst Hispanic men. But the phrase this morning for President Trump is ay caramba, because look at these shifts. I mean, Hispanic men on Trump. In 2024, he won among Hispanic men by 10 points. Look now where his net approval rating is. Down he goes into the Gulf of Mexico, minus 41 points in an average of polls this year. That is, Johnny B., by my math, a 51-point switcheroo against the President of the United States. All of that movement that you saw, that historic performance that President Trump had amongst Hispanic men, adios amigos, goodbye, see you later. As Johnny B. was telling me backstage, these numbers are bonkers.
I mean, that's a huge swing. A 51 swing is huge. What might be one reason? What is one issue area where we're seeing the impact of this?
Yeah, it's the economy. It's the economy. We're seeing this across the board, but you're specifically seeing it amongst Hispanic men. I mean, just look at these numbers here. Okay, Hispanic men on Trump in the economy. He was more trusted than Kamala Harris on the economy by 11 points. Look at this. You thought a 50-plus point swing was huge. Look at now. His net approval rating here is 49 points underwater in average polls. That is a 60-point move away from the President of the United States on the issue that got him reelected to a second term. It really helped swing Hispanic men into the Republican column to a historic degree. And all of that movement, all that hard work that Republicans made and did for the 2024 election, it all is just basically gone at this point. A huge swing back against the Republican President Donald John Trump.
Okay, how might this manifest itself in the midterms?
Yeah, okay, so it is one thing that you're seeing these big moves among President Trump, right? You're seeing these big moves among Hispanic men for President Trump. But the key question is, will this actually matter when it comes to the ballot boxes? It's one thing to not like somebody else, but will you actually pull the lever for the other party? Just look at this. Okay, choice for Congress, Hispanic men. Republicans won them by 8 points. Look now. Democrats ahead by 20 points. So, yes, what we're seeing amongst Hispanic men and their views of President Trump very much diving towards the negative absolutely look like they're going to have a massive impact on the midterm elections. Hispanic men now favoring the Democrats by 20. That is, as I finish this out, a 28-point swing against the Republican Party.
All right, these guys are just drooling over this, of course, on CNN. But if anybody could turn this around, it is President Donald Trump. Don't forget what happened before the president was elected. The same type of reporting was there. And then, of course, come election night, we saw the victory in favor of President Donald Trump. Yes, the economy is important, 100% important, because it's important to all families. But Hispanic men who are hardworking, they provide for their families. They do the jobs that others that don't want to do. It is important. But I see a big turnaround coming November. We just got to stay awake, stay aware, and talk about these issues and make sure that your voice is heard. And of course, your values are going to go to the polls, because it looks like it's going to be tight. I'm believing just for a great turnout in November. But man, you can't ignore the issues and you can't ignore the problems that we face. Next. Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley, who is protecting the over 270,000 non-citizen registered to vote, fearmongers about the midterms. This coming November election, with all the things that Trump is doing to try and rig it, it's super dangerous. This is... Anyways, they call rigging. They call this rigging by making sure that, there's ID when you have to vote. We're going to get into that a little bit. That drives me crazy. And I hope that you all wake up on the left that they're literally calling you dumb and you can't have an ID. There's no way that you are capable of getting yourself an ID, which is bonkers. Roll it.
I wrote one page on each of these, asking the question, are they happening now in the United States of America? Are any of you concerned? Raise your hand if you're concerned about these things happening here. Isn't it incredible? Whoever thought, whoever imagined that this could happen here? No, we've had 2 centuries of practice. We have norms to establish. It couldn't happen here. So that's the ring the alarm bells. It is very much happening. And this coming November election, with all the things that Trump is doing to try to rig it, it's super dangerous. I wrote one page on each of these, asking the question
to rig it. It's those statements, and no one will actually look into it, because most people are too busy to even try to research what the president's actually saying and what Republicans are actually saying, that you should have a ID when you vote, and there should be clean elections, and limit and regulate mail-in ballots, and that you should be a citizen to vote. It's not that hard, guys. Next. He hates America. Oh, James Tallarico thinks black voters... Oh, this is exactly what I was talking about. James Tallarico thinks black voters are too stupid to get an ID. Go figure. Play it.
We as human beings have the right to shape our own destinies, and we do that through the vote. And so many brave Americans, so many brave black Americans have fought and died for that right. And so for politicians in Austin or in Washington, as they're now doing with this SAVE Act, they are trying to rob our neighbors, particularly our black neighbors, of those God-given rights. So I have a track record of using every tool in my toolbox to protect voting rights.
You sit there in front of somebody and an entire audience and say that they're trying to rob black voters of their rights by what? Requiring voter ID at the voting booth? You're saying that black voters are not capable of having an ID to vote. They're probably, someone might come back and say, well, it's because they're saying that, there are people that are ill or are unable to get to the polls, and they want to take away, mail-in votes, mail-in ballots. No, we want to take in harvesting mail-in ballots. We want to take away illegal mail-in ballots. We want to make sure that when you vote for yourself, and not one person going into an entire retirement home or assisted living home and casting a vote for all of the seniors in that building. 200, 300, 400 people in one building, and casting a Democratic vote because you claim they can't vote for themselves. It's stuff like that that's problematic, that needs to be changed, that needs to be fixed. That's what we're trying. And watch, everything changes, everything shifts and goes into seasons. Watch it go into a new season where now they want to regulate mail-in voting. It's just like during the Obama years, they were all about ICE and immigration. And now it's shifted. This is how politics goes, guys. Let's wake up. All right, next. Now, Florida Republicans are storming the polls, thank God, because Florida, come on, that's America right there, Americana. And currently outnumber Election Day Democrats by nearly 2-1 in the first hour of polls opening. Keep voting. President Trump, Florida, vote for Byron Donalds for governor. He has my complete and total endorsement. He will never let you down, President DJT. There it is. Go ahead and play those. Maybe they'll show the numbers.
State's race for governor, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds is seeking the GOP nomination to replace term-limited Governor Ron DeSantis, while former Republican David Jolly is running as a Democrat. And in the Senate primary state's race for governor, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds is seeking the GOP nomination to replace term-limited Governor Ron DeSantis, while former Republican David Jolly is running as a Democrat. And in the Senate primary state's race for governor, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds.
All right, that's good. Next. Atlanta Dream refused to stand on the court for the national anthem and then honored Stacey Abrams. Oh my gosh. How this woman is not in prison is crazy. They ended up losing to Indiana Fever 95-1 after they gave her a standing ovation in Atlanta. And by the way, they didn't stand for, or they didn't honor the national anthem. Kind of crazy. Roll this one. I hear some boos in there. All right, next. Charlie Kirk to a Muslim woman complaining about, yeah, let's hear the great Charlie Kirk give us a masterclass on this issue. He asks her, are you a woman? She says, yes, I am. What is the best model for a Muslim country? Do you enjoy not having to cover yourself in public? Roll it. This is a great video.
You're a Christian, and I guess my kind of concerns is like Islamophobia.
Are you Muslim?
Yes, I am.
What is the best model for a Muslim country in your view?
I guess, like...
Do you enjoy not having to cover yourself in public?
Yeah, I guess.
So that you don't like Islam very much then, because majority of Islamic countries would require you to have full garb in public.
That's not fair to say that.
You literally could not dress like this in the streets of Riyadh as a woman. This is way too provocative, way too much skin. You as a woman, you don't have freedom of speech, you can't run for public office, you can't own property. Islam is against Western values, it's incompatible with Western values, and we in the West actually think you should have the rights that you have right now to speak and to be able to show, the skin you show here and, be able to have a happy life.
You're a Christian, and I guess my...
So that's the greatest argument is, and really that's proof that those that come here aren't wanting to become westernized or assimilate to America. They don't want to, and I'm going to show you videos of proof of this. They want to conquer. They want to convert America. When Islam conquered Mecca, they then expelled everybody. Guess what they did? They deported everyone that was not Islamic. They killed people, they expelled them, they raped them, and they made sure that no one to this day will ever step foot in Mecca because to them, they're unclean. That's who we're dealing with. But America will not bow. All right, next. The Lee Greenwood slams Iowa Democratic Christina Bohannon for calling patriotism a sensitive and controversial subject. These people are idiotic. This is where I think they're messing up. It's kind of a disgrace for the Gold Star families, and she embarrassed herself by that kind of comment. That just makes me angry. Should make you all angry. Roll it.
A battleground Democrat in Iowa is facing new scrutiny over past comments about patriotism. For example, she doesn't have it. In 2021, during a debate over the Pledge of Allegiance, congressional candidate Christina Bohannon saying, quote, I acknowledge that patriotism is a sensitive and controversial subject. Really? Many progressives have turned away from it, and I see the point, especially when the concept of patriotism has been co-opted and distorted by the other side. Our next guest has spent decades singing about his country. He's a country music singer, Lee Greenwood, joins us now. Lee, that must be a foreign concept for you to hear something like that.
That makes me hopping mad. You know, talk about the Pledge of Allegiance and what it is. It's kind of a disgrace for the Gold Star families, and she embarrassed herself by that kind of comment. I'm so full of red, white, and blue. That just makes me angry.
People who were in 2020, 21, 22 were saying stuff like this. They don't say as much now. Should all be forgiven, or should we remember where they stood?
Well, you got to remember things, but we got to also move on. You know, I'm just proud of who we are as a country and where I came from as a citizen. But you remember, a lot of immigrants have come to this country legally now, and they love the country so much. When you talk about the Pledge of Allegiance, let's examine that for a minute. I pledge allegiance to the flag. The flag is represented for all the people who sacrificed for us for all of eternity in our republic. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that. You all know who he is. He sings the great song the president comes out to every time he does a rally. And, you know, I'm proud to be an American, as you all should be too. We're not perfect, but we make it better by God's grace and by a Constitution who was inspired by the gospel. Can't go any better than that. Get any better than that. Next. All right, here we go. This gets into the nitty-gritty. Islamic scholar in Indiana, by the way. The best deed in Islam is to die in jihad against the infidels. Every Muslim should aspire to that. This cancer is spreading all over America, guys. Let's play like 10 seconds of it, and I don't even want to hear it. Next.
Ask the Messenger of Allah, what type of Islam is the best? I want to know how I can be the best. This is the type of attitude we want to develop within ourselves. We want to cultivate this attitude. How can I aim even higher? The Prophet ﷺ is asked, which are the best of deeds? Jihadun fi sabilillah. Then you have to go fight as a warrior in the path of Allah. Qala al-jihad fi sabilillah. That you have to fight.
They say Islam is a religion of peace, but everything they talk about is destroying and fighting like a warrior for Islam, who they say for Allah, whoever they think God is. And then in their Quran, it's all about, destroying the infidels who they think is unclean. Anybody that doesn't believe in Islam. That's you and I. That's America. They want to conquer the West, but America will not bow. Next. Islamic scholar in California openly declares that if a woman is captured in war, she becomes a slave and can be sexually abused because it's halal and not haram, whatever. I don't like talking like them, according to the Quran. This primitive and dangerous mentality has no place in America and the modern world. Look at this arrogant guy who can't sit on a chair. He's a weirdo. Next, play it.
You want a hard question?
Let me take a bite first.
Hard question?
Go ahead.
This guy thinks he's something cool now, so let's answer this one. Sheikh, this is a question where no imam has ever answered me, and always avoid this question.
Oh, we're not going to avoid it. Go ahead.
How is have intimacy, nice English there, how is have intimacy with a slave not adultery and halal, but having intimacy with a non-slave adultery?
I think I know. That's an easy question. If no imam's been able to answer that, I don't know which imams you've been hanging out.
Maybe because it's a weird question.
That's a weird question, but it's easy. Let's take it back a step. When you have an intimate relationship with your wife, or a woman with her husband, is that adultery? Well, no. Why is it not adultery? Because Allah made it halal. That's why. Right? Why is it that if somebody is not married and they have intimate relations, marital relations, that's considered zina, adultery, because Allah made that haram? That is the line between halal and haram. Zina and not zina, adultery and not adultery, right? So, Allah made the spousal relations between a husband and wife halal. And Allah made that those people taken under war, not regularly under war, as captives who were trying to kill you, that now you're going to support and keep in your house and spend on and treat well, that this is like a wife. This is somebody who you can have those relationships with. So if Allah made it halal, that is not zina.
That's so disgusting.
Adultery, because Allah made it halal. That's the line.
This is what's moving into your neighborhoods. This is the teachings of these people that are moving into your neighborhoods. You can take slaves of war, keep them in your home, and it not be adultery. And the left is getting behind this stuff, but they continue to cry about all the different things that they say the Republicans are doing. They're racist, and they don't care about women, and they're not inclusive enough. You're inviting this into your communities because of your lack of Common sense. Good luck with that. Like I said, America won't bow. Next. We don't want to assimilate into American society. This is 1989, guys. We want to completely revamp Americans and make them Muslims. This has been going on for a very long time. Roll it.
We do not want to melt into American society and disappear. We want to go into American society with Islamic ideals and revamp their thinking. We want to revamp them. We want to turn them into Muslim individuals. We shouldn't have feelings of a distaste for them or intolerance because they're potential Muslims. Education is one of the most important areas that Muslims have to address. And while our objective, our final objective, is not just to become part of the system that we experience now and that we see, our objective, our final objective, is to create our own Islamic systems, and not only create Islamic systems for Muslims, but to look at all the other people who are sharing this country with us as potential Muslims. And in that long-range process of making America Muslim, all of America Muslim.
All right, well, there you have it. From 1989 and probably before then. That's their goal. They don't want to assimilate, and they're going to infiltrate the education system. That's what they're doing. You got city council members in certain towns, in certain cities that are completely Muslim. Michigan, hello. All right, next. Muslims aren't hiding it. They're openly saying the time has come to change our policies in America. They are saying it's time to mobilize politically to make an American Islamic country and follow Islam, Sharia law. We spent the last 30 to 40 years in this country building 3,000 masjids, 300 Islamic schools, 250 elected officials, $4.3 billion. The next 30 years have to be about investing in leaders and change makers, policy makers, politicians. They're moving in, guys, but America won't bow. We'll get a whole, we kind of have to fill this a little bit, and then we rise up. But it's going to start with the American church and Christians. Because Islam is a solution, so he says, the Prophet Muhammad, I can't say these names, Salah, whatever, Allahi wasalam, was sent as a solution to all mankind's problem. No, he wasn't. He's dead and nowhere to be found. Jesus Christ died and came back for our sins and is alive again. Roll it.
We spent the last 30, 40 years in this country building 3,000 masjids, 300 Islamic schools, 250 elected officials, $4.3 billion. The next 30 years have to be about investing in leaders and change makers. And it's not just Memphis Islamic Center. It's every one of the 3,000 masjids in America. Our next move, our next priority is to develop as many Mus'ab bin Umairs as possible, because Islam is a solution. Because Islam is a solution. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was sent as a solution to all of mankind's problems.
We have now reached the point where mosques in America are openly saying it is time to mobilize politically and take over America, take over our government, change.
That's the premise of this show, is to expose that and make you all aware. I hope you realize what's happening, but I also want to make sure that this isn't a doom and gloom show, because we are Americans. We are founded by our forefathers who wrote the Constitution, and it was all based on the Christian Judeo values that we all hold true to our scripture, to our Bible. That's who will prevail. God, Jesus is king, not some dead prophet, so-called prophet Muhammad. All right, before I continue, I'm not sure how many more clips we got left, but you can tell me in my ear. I want you to like, share, and follow. While you're watching, hit that like button, hit the follow button, and make sure you hit that subscription bell so that you're all notified that, every time we upload content and go live. And please, please, please type in the comments. Let us know where you are watching, and that'll help us break through the algorithms. All right, let's do the last few clips, and let's start now. Holy crap, outrage is erupting after an Islamist migrant murderer was shielded by Democrat Ron Fairfax. Virginia officials. Then he fled to Tajikistan to avoid accountability. Despite admitting to guilt, Abduli was left off on insanity. Of course he was. Then they just let him leave the mental institution. As a result, he got a one-way ticket out of Virginia. This is insane. It says, we're letting Islamists slaughter our own people, going soft on them so they get away with it. Come on, guys. Virginia needs a reckoning, and the invasion has to be stopped. All right, next. This guy. By the way, Tucker is lost somewhere in he had this spiritual encounter and he's fallen off the deep end. He's part of that one world government, one world religion spirit in America, and he needs to be prayed for. We could play a few minutes of this for a few seconds.
I'm not going to take another lecture in my country about Islam this, Islam that. You're lying.
Whatever it's worth, a pretty fervent Christian, and I feel completely comfortable here in the seat of Islam.
Right. Travel a lot in the Middle East. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, I like it here a lot.
Mockery of Islam. And no president should mock Islam. He's like, you know what Islam means? Submission. I don't think I'm against that. Anyone who submits to God,
no,
I'm just for that.
The Christian worldview, and by the way, also the Muslim worldview, is a universal worldview. Anybody can come to this faith.
And many times I said on television, the problem is Islam, the problem is Muslims. They all want to kill us. They're all crazy. They're all in this lunatic suicide cult created by Muhammad in the 7th century. And I believe that. I was hysterical. I believed that. No, that's not true. Nothing about that is true.
DPUSA did a poll, and they asked the audience, what they considered to be the greatest threat to America. And they did put radical Islam at number 1.
Hello.
I'm wondering where you think those sentiments are coming from.
From the Israeli government. I don't know anyone in the United States in the last 24 years who's been killed by radical Islam.
How many Americans have been killed by Shia terrorism in my lifetime, which is 56 years? I can't think of any.
Islamic Jihad, whatever that is. Islamic Jihad. Sharia law.
Well,
Sorry, Sharia law.
But you should know, Seth, that the real danger is Sharia law. Sharia law. And you can tell when you go to a place like Abu Dhabi or Riyadh, oh man, I hope we don't ever wind up with a society like this, with a rape rate of 0, where you leave your keys in your Lamborghini and don't ever worry about it being stolen. And, if people want to get wasted, they do it at home. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't. Boy, I hope we don't wind up with that. I have more in common with the sincerely religious Pakistani cab driver. Pakistanis are all super nice to me, and the whites are all kind of craven and sad.
I just like reverent people. And anyone who bows down before God and admits I'm not God 5 times a day, but that person is not by definition my enemy. Again, not promoting Qatar. I'm not moving there.
I am, however, tomorrow buying a place in Qatar.
People are completely freaked out.
Oh my gosh,
and they're
this
seeking
guy.
solace.
All right, obviously he's such a hypocrite, and this guy's lost. We need to pray for Tucker because he had a voice for President Donald Trump. He was a good mouthpiece that helped him get elected, and now he's just lost his way. Anyways, next. CARE is mobilizing the Muslim voting bloc, and they just released their plan for the midterms. I told you guys about this the last show. They have their own movement. And, they even got some of these people in Turning Point, by the way. Sorry, guys. We're friends and everything, but somebody's got to make a stand. Roll it.
Wait, did you see this? They wrote down the plan. They're mobilizing. The Muslim voting bloc is organizing. They just told us exactly how. So listen, CARE just released its full 2026 strategic election plan. It includes 4 pillars, 35 chapters across the country, a target of 2 million new voter registrations, a congressional scorecard grading all 535 members of Congress. They've already picked the battlegrounds, 12 states that decide the House and Senate. Top of the list, no surprise, Michigan. Yeah, the same state the Dems just nominated Abdul al-Sayed for Senate. This is a coordinated, well-funded get out the vote machine. It's strong, you guys. Mosque-based voter drives, Friday prayer caravans, the polls, campus tabling, rideshare partnerships on election day. This is an infrastructure. They're not improvising. This is what a serious get out the vote operation looks like. Wait, did you see this?
All right, so anyways, this is their movement. They have been planning this for a long time. Their next 30 years is to infiltrate government, and they have already started. We showed you guys the graphic of the Democratic Socialists that have already moved in, probably lean towards the Islam religion. Next. Texas governor threatens Texas airports over funding Islamic activities. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments. Well, by the way, they banned or they stopped that whole foot washing station at DFW. Thank God. Roll it.
DFW airport has reported.
Okay, we lost audio, but before they get back to the audio, Matthew 24:24, it talks about false prophets that are going to rise in the last days. There's also in Revelation chapter 17 where it talks about people will start worshiping Mystery Babylon, the Great. It symbolizes as a prostitute sitting on a beast. There are things that people will begin to worship that are not in line with our truths. All right, let's roll this clip.
DFW Airport has reportedly canceled plans to install voodoo foot washing stations in Terminal D.
Thank God.
Public restrooms there. It happened after Texas Governor Greg Abbott is ordering a state investigation into the plan. In a letter to the DFW Airport's CEO, Abbott argued the Islamic foot washing stations amount to unconstitutional religious favoritism at a government-owned facility. Abbott says he has also referred DFW and Houston's George W. Bush Intercontinental Airport, where there is currently an operational voodoo station, to the U.S. Department of Transportation for investigation. The governor clarified his actions on Fox News.
So both for any proposed or any existing facilities like that are simply unconstitutional and illegal.
Abbott says his office is also reviewing state grants tied to those airports. And
All right, so think people are waking up in Texas. I hope they wake up in Michigan, and I hope they wake up in Alaska, because my goodness, this lineage of Ishmael thinks it's got us. Not going to happen. All right. Let's, how many more do we got, guys? Okay, let's roll the next one. 3 more. Absolute disgrace. We talked about this earlier. Zohran Mamdani's team just blew off a city council hearing on his radical second home tax to dodge questions from angry New Yorkers. 17,000 property owners got hit with notices, yet his admin refuses to face the public. Total failure of accountability. They send out 17,000 notices to people about their second properties. They're going to be taxed. They're not going to be happy. Roll this.
From New Yorkers. Uh-oh. His team has decided to blow off a city council hearing that's scheduled for today on that controversial tax for people with second homes in New York City. That way, they will avoid questions from council members and angry residents. Well, that's one way to handle it. The mayor is already accused of doxing for releasing the New Yorkers tied to those second homes that he wants to tax. 960,000 of them, and many of them say, yeah, they actually don't belong on that list. He got it wrong, President Trump, with this.
The money that you get from the tax is so small compared to the taxes you're going to be losing by people.
Donnie is feeling the heat.
All right, well, this is just an example of the democratic socialism that will fail in America. And if the Democrats lean into that, not like the old Democrats where, like Matt was saying, they spend a little bit too much. Now even 4 years ago, they didn't want immigration. They wanted relaxed or liberal abortion rights, blah, 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 blah. That's gone. Now they want democratic socialism. That's really going to make them lose. Next. Oh, this is what we were talking about earlier. New U.S. territory, Strait of Hormuz. That's why we're not hearing anything about Iran anymore, because the president is not even negotiating with them anymore. We're just controlling the region. That's how it gets done. Next. I believe this is the last one. Democrats want to abolish the very agency that found 151,000 missing children and seized enough fentanyl to kill every American. Read that again. Roll this.
Look, they say they want to abolish ICE. Even members of Congress say let's abolish ICE. But what they're failing to tell the people is we're enforcing the laws that they wrote, that they enacted. We're not making this up. We're doing the same job we did under, any other president, except under the last 4 years under Joe Biden, ICE wasn't allowed to enforce the law. If they look at the results of what ICE has done, right, yet record numbers of arrest deportation. In June, ICE arrested more illegal aliens than any time in the history of the agency. July, we blew June out of the water. August is going to be the same thing. And people need to remember, just short of 70% of everybody we arrest is a criminal. So we're removing hundreds of thousands of criminals from their neighborhoods, make their neighborhoods safe again. But they can have an answer to abolishing ICE. Okay, ICE just found 151,000 missing children that were smuggled during the Biden administration they lost track of. Some of these children were victims of sex trafficking. Some were forced into labor. We rescued those children, 151,000. So you want to abolish the agency that found 151,000 children. You want to abolish the agency that sees enough fentanyl kill every American 3 times over again. You want to abolish the agency that is attacking sex trafficking and women and children across that border. It just don't make sense. Again, we're making this country safe again. The numbers prove it. Simply look at the data.
All right. Look at the data. This is the stuff that they want to abolish. Now, Tom Homan received a medal from President Obama, but now they don't like him. He's doing the same job, but he's doing it better. And all of a sudden they don't like him. This is what I'm saying. They go in seasons. They change based on how elections go and voters feel. They're playing to your emotions, but we play to the facts. All right, this is my last call to action to you for today. Get ready to vote, America. Florida's already doing the job. They're getting it done. Now Texas needs to do it. Arizona needs to do it. The rest of America needs to wake up because what's happening in America could change us forever unless Christians, churchgoers who are registered to vote can show up and let their values do the talking. I'm going to refer to Matthew chapter 24, verse 24. It says, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time, the Bible says. We are seeing that now. These false prophets, false religions, false messiahs come in and saying that they're the solution. That's what that guy said, that Muhammad was the solution. Islam was the solution. According to the Bible, Matthew 24:24, that is your sign that they are false prophets. All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us today on the Political Pulpit. You guys have been amazing. Thank you to all of our partners, to everybody that has been there and from the very beginning. And if you're just joining us, man, follow us on social media. We're putting up content every day. You can go to www.politicalpulpit.com to get the news, to sign up for the newsletter, become a partner, consider partnering with us and being a part of a new movement that is giving you unfiltered news and information from a biblical perspective. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.